Welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. In this episode, we focus on expanding consciousness. There are so many ways that music does this, and we explore a few of them, ranging from stonemasonry to levitation, and extending to healing and intentional practice and even beyond. As good as our technology is today, can you imagine what the potential for music and sound could be? We'll be talking about all that and much, much more, as always, in these open conversations, here on Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness.
After the three-part thing on all of that, frequency and vibration, I don't know, I was journaling and I got into this headspace where I started writing down questions that were just like, well, this is so bogus, Bill. Who cares?
Well, define bogus, right?
Well, I mean, so it's like, so what really does it matter if you're playing at 440 hertz or 432? If it's all about just frequencies don't have to be in tune with anything. They just have to be specific notes or whatever, tones. So if that doesn't matter. I mean, it's curious to me that 400-year-old Tibetan bowls are tuned to 440.
Yeah.
But okay, so what?
Well, I think it's a preference thing. Like, the reason I still like to stick to 432 is I love the geometry of 432.
Right? Yes.
Like, mathematically, it's beautiful. 4 + 3 + 2 = 9. 9 is that magic number that is always found throughout sacred geometry, and I love sacred geometry. So for me, that's why I do it. Does it make it better than anybody else? Absolutely not. It's just my preference. And when you believe that, then that adds extra validity and power because of the belief. So if you really believe 440 is the ultimate frequency for things, then are you really wrong if you really, really believe it?
I'd never really, before the last 10 years or so, when it started to matter, I hadn't really given it a lot of thought. And I find it so interesting now to wonder, being a classical piano player, I kind of wonder, where did the composers, or what tuning format did the composers who wrote all of that great stuff from Bach right on up to the modern day, what did they choose as their sort of timbre of preference? Because 432 sounds a little bit richer, it's a little darker, just a little. I mean, you have to really be in it to know this stuff and work with a lot. So I'm wondering if anything that Chopin wrote in A flat was actually something that sounded more like G in 440.
Right. Yeah.
Or if it was an A flat under 432, maybe it sounded more like A.
And how are they measuring that? They really couldn't back then.
Yeah, so how would you, right?
Well, they're going by feel, and my speculation would be they're going by feel, right?
It would have to be, right?
Yeah,
because I know there are relationships that I can't describe for you that exist in the key of A flat that are different than in the key of B. And I'm just randomly picking a couple of keys. And I've read too how certain composers chose keys because they felt like they were more aligned with the feelings, with the emotions that they wanted to convey in the music.
Wow.
And that's just choosing a key. That's not knowing. Nobody had instruments they could measure what pitches people were tuned to a long time ago. But Stradivari violins sound pretty dang good, right?
Yeah.
And whatever they're tuned to.
Yes.
But I'm sure there's some sort of mathematical thing. And, Jacob Collier needs to come on this show. They can ask him.
Yes.
Right?
Jacob,
where are you, Jacob?
You, buddy.
Microtones. I mean, there's so much richness in music that we lose the moment we lock it in on anything, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I can imagine an electronic keyboard that could be randomly retuned mid-performance to move into microtonal kind of keys or back into a standard tuning or whatever, and just wouldn't it be awesome to have that kind of flexibility?
Well, I'm sure there probably is things in development that can do that nowadays. I know there's one of my favorite electronic bands that I would say is also one of my favorite psychedelic mushroom bands.
Yeah.
Boards of Canada. I believe they're Scottish. They got the name Boards of Canada because they like to use a lot of nature samples from the National Film Board of Canada. And but regardless, their music really has a profound psychedelic feeling for me, and I could not tell you why. It's a feeling more than anything. But I learned one of their techniques that they do with most of their songs is in the mastering process. They used a mastering, and for those that don't know what mastering is, it's kind of like the last process in mixing your music. It's the final process that kind of regulates the volume and the frequencies, the equalization, everything like that, to make it professional standard, and just to give it that extra umph. But what they do in their mastering process is they run it through a tape mastering machine. I don't know the terminology, and they physically will press down on the tape off and on to bend the pitch just ever so slightly. And they're doing it on analog tape. So they're trying to, like, it's almost as if, like, let's say, I mean, I know they're tuned to 440, but all their music, the way that they have this very unique sound is they detune a lot of their synths, some a little up, some a little down. So it sounds that perfect balance of just a little off, but not too off. So that's like hard to hear,
Yeah.
but enough that it's like, whoa, something's a little weird and wavy here. And I know whether there are ways of doing that is pressing down physically on the tape of the final mastering process. So what's that doing? Well, it's playing with pitch, but from a feeling sense. The original frequency they recorded it at stays the same, but they're then bending the final output a little bit, which gives it a very unique feel. And it has it has I guess an outcome that comes from that. So yeah, I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
it really depends.
It's more organic, and
It feels
instead
organic.
of being like the
Yeah,
perfection that we often get from recording studios, where everything is
exactly.
completely audible. We talked about, I think, the was an essay I read. It might have been an essay in The Honest Broker, actually, with what's his name, Joya, Ken Joya, Steve Joya. Anyway, the essay was about how the Beatles used that very same kind of tape methodology, but they would use it and slow the entire recording down in the mastering so that it would come out halfway between two known keys. And
Wow.
they did it for the same reason. So something that they record, say in the key of G, they'd slow down the tape just enough so it sounded a little bit like it was between G and G flat.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
And they did it for the same, like to make that richness come alive.
Wow.
So this has been a practice that's been at least that long. It's probably been around longer, as long as we've had some sort of recording devices.
Yeah, I know Pink Floyd. At least I think The Wall was they did it at 432, or they did something similar to bend it down to 432 hertz or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And of course, we can do that with software now. If you've got something in 440, you just change the software and it plays back at 432 or whatever pitch you want.
Yeah, yeah, and it's still different. Like everything's going to sound different depending on how your methodology of creating that outcome and physically manipulating tape will sound different than a digital version of that. However, they are pretty accurate and similar these days. But it's just curious. It's curious how we, on an intuitive level, because this is still hard to measure scientifically, but I mean, musicians and artists in general are usually more intuitive just because the right brain, the creative feminine side is unlocked a lot more with artists just because of the nature of their work,
Yeah, it's
right?
part of our craft. We have to be intuitive that
Literally,
way.
it's your job to unlock your intuition more than anything. So so that I think that's why there's more of that play with the feeling of a frequency, because they can sense it because
Yeah,
they're more tapped into that.
yeah. I know for people to improvise, and you could kind of see this in Jacob Collier's work, that the choice of a key is totally intuitive. You don't sit around and go, okay, I'm going to do 12 bar blues in G. Well, I mean, you do if you're playing with a band, right? But if you're
Yeah.
just going to take off and improvise something, the tonality or the home key or any of that is like it's not that important compared to the ideas and the feelings that you want to express, which often come across without any relationship to modern music theory, right?
Yeah.
Or even ancient music theory. They just come off that way. And I know you feel this when you do like mushroom music, Chris. It's like there's something else that comes into the room.
Yes.
And it no longer matters whether everybody's in tune, for example, or everybody's playing on the beat because it doesn't exist, or any of the other sort of restraints that we normally place around the performance of music. They just disappear. And all that's left is you as this channel for whatever the music is that's coming through.
That's also, I don't know why this made me think of this, but I remember when I've had moments of severe sleep deprivation, I get these auditory hallucinations, which are really interesting. Somehow, I remember when I was coming back from a film shoot, and returning some equipment. The guy that I was returning, I hadn't slept in like 2 days straight, and the guy I was talking to, I was just like, "Hey, so what's that music you're playing in the background?" He's like, "I'm not playing music in the background." And
Ah,
I was hearing music through the fan. There's like a fan in the office, and somehow I was hearing like Britney Spears coming through a fan. It wasn't there, you know. He told me, he's like, "There's no music playing, dude. Like, this is
yeah,
you are hallucinating,
that
my
is in your
friend.
mind.
It is in your mind." And I'm like, "Why am I hearing Britney Spears through a fan?" But sometimes I would get these moments where inanimate objects and sounds and nature start to blend in and almost create music when I'm in altered states of consciousness, let's say.
Yes,
And sometimes running water will start to sound like a percussion suite or, you know, like weird. It's like it's these altered states of consciousness start to really blend the murky waters of what music and sound are, depending on your way of observing and receiving that music or
yes,
sound. And it really
yes.
gets quite crazy.
Have you played with the bone conducting headphones?
I still haven't yet. No, I love the idea of those though.
I want to get a, I mean, there are pairs that fit in your ears, but there's some that sit on your head too. And they have speakers that rest on your skull, as well as the ones that are close in by your ears. There's like a bone close to the front of your ear where you can pick up vibrations. But I would love to get more in that space because, well, I guess the analogy would be, so oftentimes we listen to music on our devices, right?
Yeah.
Without a headphone or anything. It's just playing on the phone. And there's so much that you miss because the
Oh
speakers in
yeah.
the phone, right, can't provide that depth. So the difference between putting on over-the-ear headphones and listening to music on your device is, for me, the same as the difference between using bone conducting headphones to listen to the same music, because there's a new level of depth that comes in. And I want to use the word sort of three-dimensional, but
Okay.
that doesn't feel like it's enough, you know, because they're already making recordings that you can hear if you've got
Like
headphones on.
binaural.
You can hear
Yeah.
them in space. You can hear like instruments in front of you, instruments behind you, you know, and you get this idea that there's depth in the room that you're listening.
Hmm.
But the bone conducting goes beyond that in some way into, I don't know, a fourth dimension, into some other aspect of music that's spatial, but also deeper, you know?
It sounds like almost other dimensional, like higher
Yeah,
dimensional in
yeah.
a way where it's like it goes beyond just this third dimensional reality, which of course is hard to measure, but it's probably why the English language we hit a real cap when we try to talk about other dimensional experiences. So that's why it's like it's hard for you to find the words, right? To
Yep.
describe. I would love to experience this because so what's it doing exactly? It's sending frequency into, so it's bypassing your ears, is it
Yeah,
not?
it bypasses the vibrating membrane in your ears by buzzing essentially right against your bone. Now,
Wow.
the vibrating membrane in your ears is going to pick up that vibration too, but it picks it up in a way that is different. You know,
I gotta try this. This sounds really
it's
interesting.
really hard to explain. It's
Yeah.
you hear it. It's
Is
the
it clear?
same.
Like it's the
Oh
same kind
yeah,
of, yeah.
it's brilliantly clear, but it feels different in some way.
Interesting.
And it's not like you feel the buzz. Like there, you can't feel the things buzzing on your skull, but you hear. And it's, I mean, it's fascinating to me. They have there's a new amphitheater here in San Diego called the Shell. It's an outdoor amphitheater, and it's remarkable in a number of ways. But one of the ways it's remarkable is that it has the newest sound technology for outdoor sound replication. And I'm not kidding, people. If you go there and you listen, you'll know what I mean. You have to be in the space, but the in the space anywhere in this, what, 4 or 5 thousand seat outdoor arena is the audio equivalent of being right on stage next to the performer.
Oh my God.
The sound
Wow.
is that good. It's not that loud. It's not about a decibel thing. It's about a presence thing. And how the technology is able to do that boggles my mind, right?
Wow.
And then the other thing is it's directional. So if you were 100 feet away, you wouldn't hear much. But the moment you get into the envelope, it's amazing. It's like having headphones on.
Wow.
Outdoors.
That's really cool.
And they're talking, this is really crazy. So we have another amphitheater that's right under the landing pattern for Lindbergh Field, like, I don't know, 10 flights an hour, overflying an outdoor performance space. And back in the day, we used to go there and they would have concerts and musicals and stuff. And the whole thing would stop while the plane went over. You can't hear. You can't flip and hear a thing, right? So the orchestra, everybody would just hold freeze. And then it'd start right up after the plane was gone.
That's hilarious.
So they're thinking of reopening this place, but they have technology now that can block out the sound of the planes. So not only can it keep the envelope of sound in the amphitheater, but it has a way of like noise canceling the jets going over 300 feet above.
Is this an open roof?
Open air. Open air. Yeah, it's open air.
How in the hell do they do that?
Right? I'm like, okay, let's see this. I want to be part of that. So, I mean, it's like both noise canceling headphones, I suppose. But
yeah, but they cover your ear.
But they cover your ear. In this case, right? It's open.
This is open. Yeah.
So in the open environment, they can create a sonic shell that blocks out all external sound. And
okay, where is this device for my own home and recording? Because I have been in so much trouble with my neighbors for my whole life.
I know.
I would kill for that technology. That's
what's that meme? I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, or let's see, what is it? Oh yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning the other day when this neighbor knocked on my door, all concerned. Fortunately, I was awake playing the accordion.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I get that at 3 p.m. too sometimes. So I would love a sonic bubble of noise cancellation where I could blast my DJ sets, my dance music, all the things I want to play loud but never can. Like that would be amazing.
But dude, most of the time these days we're playing keyboards and stuff. So how do you let it out? I mean, I know you have the setup. Do you often play with actual audio in the room?
Well, I try because it's still like my body still needs to feel this music at some point.
Yeah.
So what I try to do if I'm being noise conscious, which is 95% of the time, I would say, fortunately, unfortunately, I would do 95% of it with my headphones, but then at some point I'm like, I gotta test this stuff out. I gotta listen to it on other speakers. I got where I am currently the Bose Bluetooth ones that have nice bass. So I'm like, okay, great. Like you said in the beginning, there's a lot of frequencies we miss when we play it through the phones and things like that. So when I'm mixing something, I need to know like what the heck the low end's going to sound like. So I got to play it through speakers at some point. Plus I want to know, I want to feel it. I want to dance to it, for crying out loud, or I want to move to it. So, I have to limit it because I don't have this wicked sound canceling technology that would just be, and think about this too, you think about the silent discos, right? Where they usually give you these wireless headphones. I've been to a couple. Very cool concept. It's not my favorite, but I love it when you aren't able to obviously blast music. It's better than nothing. And it's a unique experience. However, especially with going to a club and dancing, and you don't have to like clubs, I'm just mean like going somewhere to dance to your favorite music, your body is feeling all of those frequencies. And that's what I've realized. A lot of what I love about going out somewhere to dance, going to a DJ show or something, is because my whole body feels that bass, feels that music. And that's what makes you want to dance. Is you're like, oh my God, it's so loud and all encompassing. Like all I can think and feel is the music. Whereas even with headphones, it's just not the same.
Not the same.
So, it's just not the same. So
that's what I feel in my hands too. The difference between an acoustic piano and a keyboard. The touch at the end of your fingers is gone on a keyboard because there's no vibration in it. I mean, no vibration that you can feel. There's plenty of vibration in your ears, right? The sound, you're hearing that, right? But or even if you're sitting on top of your monitor on stage, but you're not feeling in your fingertips the way you feel it in a real live acoustic piano.
Yep.
That's buzzing there. Guitarists are so lucky, man, and bass players, they can carry their instrument and feel the whole thing the whole time.
I know.
And even drummers can feel it, right? But not us.
No, I mean, but you usually have to play an electric kit anyway for your drummer because again, noise and all that good stuff. That's a tough instrument to keep under wraps with the neighbors. That they would probably more than anyone need the noise cancellation technology.
Oh my gosh, yeah, tell me about it. And having had 5 teenagers,
Yeah.
4 of whom played instruments. It's where do you go to practice the trumpet or whatever? It's
Oh
like
God.
it's not, yeah,
It's a fiasco for sure. I think
population.
about this. I think about that noise cancellation technology at these amphitheaters you're talking about, or that one specifically, and I'm wondering other applications of that. Like for example, even in small therapy rooms where you want your clients to be able to let out big yells or just fully express themselves, they could then do that. Usually, it's like yell into a pillow, but I've done that. It's not the same. I'll be
Not the
honest.
same.
Is
No.
I want to hear the echo and the acoustics of how much rage or whatever I'm letting out. It's very therapeutic and cathartic. That would be a really helpful tool for so many different things, is to keep the loudness in the room and not outside of the room. So what do you even think they're doing with that? Because part of what I'm thinking, like, are they shooting other frequencies that create like a frequency bubble somehow?
They must.
Like what are they doing? I feel like it's not physical in a sense of they're building
Yeah, it can't
some
be.
membrane or so, you know what I mean? Like it's
It's got to
what?
be, well, a very fast signal processor, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess on this is only limited by what I know about noise canceling headphones, which is that they're listening to the environment the whole time and then providing you under them with the equivalent canceling frequency to whatever noise might have happened in the room. They're not,
Oh, right.
they're not physically able to block out the sound. They can block out enough of it, but the rest they have to mask.
Okay.
So some kind of very fast signal processing thing that identifies frequencies that are not part of what the input frequency is, and then plays a mask over the top of them to essentially negate the wave,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it
And
must be.
I mean, jet noise is, it's not too random. After a while, you'd think you could probably dial it in. There's a couple dozen kinds of airplanes that could fly over. So, it's, for the most part, it's doable. It's not like there's, F-18s landing there. Right?
No.
Every so often you get a military plane, but it's not the really noisy afterburner kind.
I'm sure you could
So,
figure it out. It's really interesting. That kind of technology just gets my brain going because of all the other applications that it could have,
true.
for so many things.
Oh,
But
studying in
no,
inner city schools are one of the noisiest places in the world. And the science on that is, look, we've researched this, and kids just work better when the environment is quieter because it's safer.
yeah,
Excessive sound is not a safety producing thing.
no,
So, I mean, especially if it's sirens and stuff like that. But,
yeah.
that would be there's a guy named, I think his name is Julian. It's not Julian Fellows, not Julian Assange. Julian, he's English though, and he's a knight of the order, but he's been studying sound suppression, I guess, for a long, long time. And
Wow.
the science of how to create environments where we can manage sound is a really big part of what he talks about. He's on TED. I can probably find him and loop him in. But this whole idea is we've become a noisy world.
Yes, we have.
Everybody's got their noise generator or more than one.
Well, air conditioning units,
Oh yeah,
ventilation, music that of course everyone's playing, all the chit chat, the cars, the sewage, I mean, just keep naming these things, power generation. Nothing is really quiet,
nothing's
nothing
quiet.
that we do. And most of our energy is created through explosion and, technology,
Yeah.
combustion technology. So it's loud. Everything's loud.
Oh my gosh. And you've heard this, I know. Electric cars now have sound generators.
Yeah. So you can actually hear them,
You can
which,
sound, and they
you know,
sound like, they sound like Blade Runner for some reason,
not sure
except for the
why.
BMW. BMW's Roadster, I understand, actually has an engine sound. So it sounds like a internal combustion engine.
I understand that part because I'm like I have been by some I guess older model electric cars and they're so quiet that it is true like you can't always hear them approaching.
Yeah, they're kind of
So
creepy.
yeah, so it's great for stealth, for military purposes, but yeah, for us civilians, it is safer to hear them coming, but then it contributes back to this idea of we are a very noisy
Yeah.
culture. And I know for myself, like one of the many benefits of getting into nature is it's always quieter. I swear to God, even when you're near a loud waterfall, there is such a quiet, like
Yeah.
somehow it's still so much more peaceful than the honking and sirens and the constant, that wall of sound you get in any downtown metropolis. It's not the same. It's not the same. And I know
Not the same.
some people do find it comforting. I have a friend that likes to have some kind of different forms of white noise and ambience to fall asleep to. And sometimes he'll actually choose like downtown dull ambience of a city,
Oh
or
yeah. Yeah.
air conditioning unit, fans. So I can get it because it's also familiar for people, but for myself personally, I just don't. I'll take nature, please.
Yeah. Any
Any day,
day.
any day.
It's gotten so, around us anyway, we have a car alarm that is susceptible to like a Harley Davidson.
Oh,
So if the right kind of motorcycle goes by, our car alarm's going to go off.
wow. So the vibration
It's
will
the
set it off.
vibration. And there's a couple that live in the neighborhood. This always happens in the middle of the night. They never go by in the middle of the day.
Of course.
But it's that loud, and the same car does not respond to like helicopters flying over, or other things that you think might trigger it. So, gosh, I hadn't even planned to talk about this today, but New York City has this program now where they have listening monitors around the city, and you can get a ticket for excessive noise in your vehicle.
What?
They listen and they snap a picture of your license plate, and in the mail, you get a ticket because you're too loud.
In New York City,
In New York City, of all places, like,
of all
any
places.
place that was not quiet. I mean, I could
Oh,
see that in, like Yosemite Valley or a national park or something like that.
sure.
You come riding in, chain full of Harleys. They're like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't be riding in the middle of the world's oldest glacier carved valley that has resonance that we can hear you all the way back to Sacramento and out to Reno and everything. It's like, guys,
That makes sense. Yes.
I'm with you on that. But so I don't know. I guess people are trying, and I've lived in places where there are noise ordinances. You can't play. Anybody can use anything on a road. But the moment that you pull that Harley into your own driveway, you're now subject to a noise ordinance that you
Wow.
didn't have on the public right of way.
Interesting.
And the noise ordinances are really ridiculous. I think for a while we lived in the mountains, and there was a noise ordinance that was like anything over 60 decibels.
It's not that
That's
loud.
nothing. I mean, you can't have a conversation at a restaurant under 60 decibels.
Yeah, that's
it's
weird.
it's pretty
That's
pretty
weird.
pretty low. And I got it. I understand. People are trying to keep the mountains beautiful and quiet, and and that's great until like the latest Harley gang or Corvette run comes up the hill and wants to be in the middle of town. And there's some great. I mean, don't get me wrong here. The Ford Cobra was an amazing vehicle. 20 of them coming into town at the same time is an experience you will not forget. It is a
Nope.
sonic blast.
Yeah.
On the other hand, can't hear the birds at the waterfall.
Oh God, no. No, I mean those Harley engines too got those really sub low frequencies that you feel in your
Oh,
whole
they're
body.
they're tuned so well.
Yeah, they
Just
are.
oh,
Like
yeah, it's that. That's what you want.
yeah, that's exactly what you're paying for with
What you
those
pay
things.
for,
Oh yeah.
and I get it.
That's so interesting. So I like, what are your thoughts on this, how we're kind of going right now with like how we listen to music, and these, let's say, going back to these headphones that are almost feels like they're getting, and this is without my personal experiences listening to music through them, but it sounds like it's like trying to get even closer to the source of the sound or the music, where you're bypassing your ears and going like directly into almost your brain. It's like, are we trying to almost eliminate some of the barriers to get to what, like
Get the
what does that do to music in a way too,
jack in
right?
like the Matrix.
Kinda, that's what it feels like, right?
I suspect I don't have any research on this, and I'm not an expert, but I suspect that like the cochlear implants that they use, um, that are actually listening devices that send a signal into the brain rather than through the ear, are something like that.
Hmm.
Um, it's the immersive experience of listening to music really loud in a dance hall or something like that. It feels good to me when I have my ear plugs in, and I can remove almost all of the volume from it. I can just feel it. But I think what we really need to go here is toward education, because once you know a piece of music, like really know it, whatever, Pink Floyd, The Wall, pick anything. Once you really know it, you can have the experience without hearing it, if that makes any sense.
Can you elaborate on that? So like
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but the idea is, so once the music is inside you, your brain doesn't know whether it's listening to an external sound source or remembering the music. All that you need to do is trigger the memory to have the same experience of having heard it, like as sound waves. Now, obviously, it's not the same as if the sound waves are hitting you at 120 decibels in a dance, like you can feel your internal organs jumping around. The sound pressure is not present, but your response. So part of what's fun about what I do is I get to teach people how to recreate that response so they can have it without the music. It's like having the effects of taking a drug without having to take the drug. And because the brain doesn't know the difference.
The placebo.
Yeah, right. That you've sort of trained yourself to have this response. And all you need to re-engage with that response is to remember the music. I often ask people this question, like, what love song is present for you most of the time? Like, that comes up, because we have deep feelings about love, right? And it's not like asking people what song scares you or anything. So you feel love. And often when I ask that, somebody will say whatever the song, and you can see their face change, and you know that they've had that response to the song without having heard the song.
The memory almost of that song.
Yeah, it's like
attached to the song, right? Like,
I mean, if you explain it neurologically, it becomes very dry. But you've basically neuroplastized yourself into that song. So anytime you want it, the response is, it's like learning to play a piece of music, right? When you need to play it, all of the thought goes out of it. You just repeat the muscle memory connected to the emotion.
Is that like remember with Oliver Sacks's work, Musicophilia, and you even see this in the documentary that he's in, where that catatonic guy with I think it's Alzheimer's, and can't even move, and then they really look back and they're like, oh, his family gave a couple of songs that he used to play in a big maybe like New Orleans style band, and they played that, and wow, like animation, it was like he came to life, and that it had to be a specific song. We've talked about this on other episodes where it's so specific to the individual, but when you hit it, it's like resonant frequency. I just did a podcast on my other podcast, Ancient Mysteries on Earth, about acoustic and sound levitation technology in ancient times.
Nice.
And and like what they were tapping into is resonant frequency. We see the examples now with a singer sings and breaks the champagne glass, right? That's
right.
That's finding the resonant frequency of a specific molecule in a bridge, in a glass, in a person, in a rock, whatever it is, and then it brings it to life. So it's almost like this memory associated with a particular song is in the same kind of way. It almost like it hits this less of a physical but a more metaphysical resonant frequency with your soul, with your memory, something like that. And then boom, like all of a sudden it bypasses all these neurological disorders and physical challenges, and all of a sudden this guy's dancing and he's smiling and he's singing, and you're like, what just happened?
It's called
literal magic.
If you're following along at home, it's called Alive Inside, and it's a documentary you can find on YouTube.
Fantastic.
And
great.
Thank you, Dr. Sachs, and the music therapists who got together to make this happen. And I love the contrast that you pointed out here, because it's so much more than one frequency, right? This guy is responding, a memory care patient with no effect, like you've said. He's just like nothing. And then the music comes on, and he is responding holistically. Like he is back in time at that moment.
You can see his face looks like he's 22 again.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
and it's it's a way more than one frequency, because it's a whole bunch of music. Like the music has animated him way beyond a single point of healing. Like if you were to use music to, or use a frequency, I should be careful, because we just did that series, right? Use a specific frequency for a specific purpose. This is way beyond that. This is like allowing an entire experience that's encapsulated inside to once again be played back on the body, right? So he's like somebody pushed play on this very specific thing that let him re-experience the sights and the sounds and the smells and the tastes and the, the movement, and all of the stuff that was part of that experience has come flooding back in on him, and suddenly he's in it. And there's no other way of saying it. He's in it, right? He's just
And he's living it. He's like he's living it.
Yeah.
It's again, he's using the word animation because it's like as if
Yeah.
someone has strings on his body, and they're all of a sudden his body hasn't moved for God knows how many months or years, and then all of a sudden this song comes on, comes right to life like a puppet,
Yeah.
right, with strings on it, all of a sudden able to move, dance, sing, laugh, smile. All these things are, I mean, goes back again to just the constant, this power, this unbelievable, almost sacred power of music that we're still unlocking on a scientific level. You know, what's also interesting is that a lot of these, Buddhist temples and a lot of these much more ancient Eastern practices. I just learned this recently through some other research, and they actually basically put a lot of their artwork on their walls and on their murals and on their carpets on the floor. A lot of these, you'll see a lot of geometric patterns. They love sacred geometry, and specifically just certain geometric patterns. And what I learned recently is those geometric patterns aren't random. They're actually representing specific frequencies that the monks want to remember so that they can sing those frequencies in different chants, etc., for different outcomes. And the geometry that they've painted and sketched and made into different pieces of art that are visible, of course, that you can see, are depicting these different frequencies in different geometric shapes. And to me, it's almost like an even more ancient form of music notation, or maybe more specifically, frequency notation, because it's not exactly a piece of music. You're seeing one frequency in the shape of whatever the geometric shape is, right? Yeah. But they were trained in a way to see a geometric shape and be like, oh, that's the ohm, or that's the whatever, right? And then they can do that, they chant that, and if they get enough voices together, maybe they can have certain outcomes. I've seen incredible videos. I think we've talked about this in other episodes, where these monks again chant a tumor out of a woman, and they have it on ultrasound, and you can see in real time the tumor literally going away, and they're chanting something very specific and using intention and all these other things. Belief, very important too, but nevertheless very accessible. And then what I was just earlier today recording in another podcast was the acoustic levitation, and these monks in Tibet would use these horns among drums and among singing and chants, and they put them very strategically with, like, they measured like 63 meters from this one rock, and they do it in a very specific angle, a circular angle around the rock, and then they all play at once, and within 4 minutes they can levitate this rock up a mountain 250 meters up the mountain. And that's how they would build stuff. And like, this is the crazy kind of ancient technology / modern technology that we're rediscovering of all of these powers of frequency, resonant frequency, sound, music, healing, bringing people literally back to life. I mean, it's just mind blowing. I feel like everything can, as Nikola Tesla says, everything can be reduced down to sound, frequency, vibration when it comes to anything. And so what I'm excited about, when you were talking earlier in the episode about this really cool technology of these amphitheaters and different forms of noise cancellation, for me, I get really excited about where we can go on so many levels with like just sound and frequency, and what we can do with that in so many fun and so many healing and so many different ways, right?
Do you think they used any kind of sound levitation to build the pyramids?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, for me, it's the only way you can move, minimum 8 to 10 ton blocks, if not the larger ones that make up the Great Pyramid are upwards of 150 tons. And also quarried 1,000 kilometers away, somehow shipped up the Nile, then taken off the Nile, and then brought up to this Giza plateau. And then not only that, put into perfect precision, like laser cut precision. You can't fit a piece of paper between these blocks. And also perfectly aligned to all the cardinal directions, different astronomical alignments, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely, they use sound levitation. And I can send you a link we can put in the show notes for people to watch. There's a really cool 40-second video on YouTube that literally shows rocks being levitated using resonant frequency. And I'll send that to you, Bill, after we chat here, because For those of you listening, it's like, you want to know how the pyramids were built, watch this video. You'll see it in 2 seconds. These pretty big rocks are getting boing lifted up
Yeah,
just off of these
yeah,
these big frequency generating devices. So yeah, 100%. Also, on that note, I think sound's used for a lot of other things. I think they figured out how to use sound to melt rock. So sometimes it's like
nice.
they may have moved rocks with sound and levitation, and and on top of that, they also may have learned how to create cement out of melting granite with sound and then pouring it into different shapes, which is another really interesting theory. I saw scoop marks when I was in the Aswan quarry, very south of like the southern tip of Egypt. And the Aswan quarry has a really cool thing called the unfinished obelisk. It's over 1,000 ton, one piece of granite obelisk that cracked in the middle. Therefore, they didn't take it out of the quarry because it broke. And you get to see underneath the obelisk, they hadn't fully cut it out, and the cut marks are like ice cream scoops.
Wow.
It's going through granite, which is harder than most substances in rock on this planet, one of the hardest rocks there is, and it's a perfect ice cream scoop. So you're like, they must have had some form of these tools that could, with sound, most likely melt and scoop rock like it's ice cream, literally. I mean, this is what we can potentially do, because when you're working with sound and resonance, you're manipulating things on a molecular, small, like quantum level, which means you can literally do anything.
I
It's
have
crazy.
this notion that it would take a lot of really heavy, large equipment to create that kind of sonic space. And if a civilization had that kind of equipment, they could have used that to do other things as well. But there's no evidence of that. So this has got to be much more fundamental.
Yeah, I really wonder. I'm sure it's a variety of things, and I'm sure throughout time we had different devices that may become a lot larger. I think we probably started off with small, really incredible stuff, and then maybe as we regressed a little as civilization over thousands of years, we got, like, you hear about the walls of Jericho being
Yeah.
brought down by sound, used in warfare. I mean, the military has Caesar technology, and they use which is the opposite of laser, is focused light. This is focused sound. You can use it for good and for bad, and this is the same for dispersing riots and protests. The lots of police now have sound devices that just give people like headaches or make them nauseous, or do whatever and makes them, disperses the crowd. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of that has existed throughout time, and probably in many different iterations. The human voice certainly can also do it,
Oh
and you
my
get
gosh. Yeah.
enough of them together with one specific note that you're hitting, and who knows what's possible.
Stuff can happen.
Lots of stuff can happen.
So I can see myself as part of the prehistoric choir that basically stands around and tones to get granite to become scoopable or whatever it
Well,
is.
now you're part of the construction crew, not a musician anymore.
Right, right, right. Or a sound technician or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
the odd thing about it is that the instruments that we do see in Egyptian uh, relics, hieroglyphics, stuff like that, it's not like they're that sophisticated looking instruments.
No.
So there's some other technology that's there that is not about making performance music or ceremonial music. There's some other technology, if it's sound related, it just doesn't ever show up. Maybe it was
Well,
a
and
pretty well kept secret.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that potentially, but and I know, and I'd say one of them is that the further back you go into history, for some reason, the more sophisticated a lot of the architecture gets,
Right.
and
Yes.
and it starts to lead you to wonder. Then I guess the further back in time, the more sophisticated the tools became,
Uh-huh.
and so maybe we don't see them now, because what we're seeing from Egypt was the Egypt of, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And that's where you had maybe the more lesser advanced technology, where you're seeing the instruments that look more traditional to what we have today. And then, before that, maybe for another 1,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 years ago, they were maybe more sophisticated, but through time, water catastrophes, etc., war, we all know that the victors of any conquering civilization love to get rid of everything that was before it. So I
Yeah.
mean, how many times Egypt's been conquered? So many times, one of the most conquered places on the planet. They've gone through so many different empires and dynasties, so it's no wonder there's not much left. I mean, the outer the outer casing of the Great Pyramid is completely gone. You only see
Yeah.
remnants of that at the bottom. It used to be completely white granite. It
Yeah.
would have shone like a star. It would have been amazing
That'd
with a
be
beautiful
incredible. Yeah.
gold cap on the top that, of course, got melted down by robbers and whatever, and long gone now. So I think a lot of it is just natural time. It gets rid of these things, but oh, who knows? Maybe some private individuals. I mean, the thing that people don't know a lot about archaeology too is that there are tons of private collections. A lot of museums that we go to publicly are actually borrowing collections from individuals, wealthy families, or just people in general who have collected these things for maybe many, many, many generations. So what we don't even know is that there could be incredible stuff in someone's backyard that we'll never maybe see. So who
We'll never
knows?
find out about.
Yeah, until it goes on YouTube or something. So I mean, this levitation stuff's really cool. I'll like I said, I'll send you a link, and for those of you guys listening, check it out. It's pretty mind blowing, and it's just so cool to see yet again what can happen with sound and music. You think about when you're playing some of your dance music and it vibrates the back window of your car, but only on a certain note, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That's resonant frequency. It's a fun rabbit hole to go down. Check it out.
Yeah. I have been a particularly enthusiastic fan of boom cars, even though a lot of people hate them because they're so loud. But what you can do inside a boom car is incredible if you can survive it, right? If you can survive the experience. But to be able to create that deep of a vibration in your own body is the car is an ideal place for that because everything can be focused.
And what's the experience for the audience here of a boom car?
Oh, you've heard him coming. The thing you hear is the bass, boom, boom, and as it gets closer, you'll hear other sort of sounds that are in that. If the windows are rolled down, you can hear the music pretty loudly. But it takes the sound bath idea to a whole new level because it's almost an assault by sound, but it can be a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And as you've pointed out, demonstrating that kind of assault by sound in your own private living space is often will lose friends and annoy people. But it's definitely worth having. I mean, I suspect, Chris, that part of the reason we have these giant orchestras and stuff like that is people were trying to reconnect with some sonic experience that can only exist with a whole bunch of instruments before amplification. Or now, I mean, we got the wall of sound or whatever. There's so many ways of being able to experience that now that are, shall I say, healthier. Although, that rumbling, the air conditioning rumble, or if you're working next to heavy machinery, there's a real destructive effect that can happen if that's just 24/7 part of what, or even during your working hours, if that's what's going on, that can really take things apart, mentally.
Yeah.
It's high stress without really appearing to be. Oh yeah, that's the cement factory or whatever next door.
Well, we can't see it, and we can't hear a lot of the things. Is like you can hear the air conditioning, but you can't maybe hear all the frequencies coming from the air conditioning. You can hear some of it, and then we can get in. Yeah, like and of course our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and everything like that. These are all frequencies, and they're not all great for our bodies. They're not. We're bathing in so many radioactive frequencies from all of our technology. We don't even know what it feels like to not be in them until we go on the good old nature, get out of these frequencies and get into nature. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm so calm. And oh my God, why am I not freaking out about things? And why do I feel so happy for no reason at all?
It's just taking the pressure on. I used to feel that when I drive from the flatlands home to the mountains. And there was a point where you get about a mile up and all of a sudden this burden just lifts.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. And it still happens. If I go up to the mountains, now that I'm aware of it, every time I go up above a mile or so, above whatever that translates to in kilometers, forgive me.
2.5,
something like that. When you get that high physically, like you said, the burden just lifts. And it's not like you're hearing anything different. It's just like all of a sudden, all of the CPU cycles that you spend on blocking out the sound of the flatlands are freed up to do something else. And I think what they do is basically nothing. And you just get this sense of elation of not having to work so hard just to, breathe.
I think we underestimate how awesome nothing can be,
My grandmother told me this once, but her thing was music is the silence between the notes. But I think
Mm,
music is just to prepare us for that silence.
I love that.
More than anything else, its function is to give us something satisfying that we can say yes, and then be in the silent moment that happens after.
I love that. You know what that makes me think of is, and I do that. I've done this subconsciously for so many years, and I've only become more consciously aware of it recently. And when I'm anywhere, remote metropolis, or like right now, I'm staying in a small town 2 hours north of Toronto. It's beautiful. It's quiet. It's exactly why I'm here. I love it. And when I'm walking on the trails and stuff, I really very rarely have an urge to listen to music. I really don't. And I'm a musician. I love music, and I very rarely. I don't think I've even once yet since being here for the last 2 weeks now. I don't think I've ever listened to music going out on a hike, walking through this sort of quiet streets. But the second I get near the main highway, I'm happy to put headphones on, happy to put some music on,
Yeah.
done immediately. And I know when I'm in the city, it's the same thing. Walking around most streets, I'll have my music, I'll have my earbuds in because I just much rather listen to music than the roar, the dull roar of a city. But then I walk through a park, even in a city. I'm like, oh, I usually take my headphones out. I like hearing that. I like the sound of silence when it's a peaceful sound of silence. And it's funny that you say that, it's like music can almost prepare you for that because I love that where when it's loud and noisy in a city, I want music to help me stay centered and kind of drown that out. But it's like it's preparing me for when I have the moment to just listen to the natural ambiance, the ambience of a nice space in nature or whatever it is. I'm the first one to be like, all right, headphones off, music off, let's do this. Like,
Yeah,
give me
let's
give me the
be.
the wind and the birds and the sound of a creek nearby or whatever. Like, I love that.
So that old yoga prepares you for meditation
Yeah.
thing, and I've always wondered, what does meditation prepare you for? And I wonder sometimes with like music prepares you for silence. What does the silence prepare you for? Right?
Ooh, it's metaphysical.
It's yeah. Let's get metaphysical,
Metaphysical.
metaphysical.
Well,
So
I wonder if that's
yeah,
preparing you for the next stage of existence after we pass out of these physical bodies into the next, stage of life, of other dimensions. Maybe that's because music seems to be so in a way multidimensional. They talk about, of course, in different
right, yeah,
cultures and practices around the world in ancient times too, modern times, of how to commune with the spirit realm with drumming, big time. Of course,
sure,
you around a fire, something about the element of fire is very good for bridging different worlds, spirit world, physical world. Music's very intricate and it plays a very important role with that tradition. I wonder if maybe it is music and meditation could be preparing us for these next dimensional experiences. I don't know. It's just a guess, but I don't know. Maybe.
I haven't figured out what it prepares us for here, so I'm good with that.
Right. Yeah. You're right. One
It's like
step, one thing first, Bill.
silence always seems to be a preparation for the noise that is to come, right? And it doesn't seem fair.
No.
It's like we had this music and we had this concert, and then there was this magical moment of stillness in the room. Thousands of
Mm.
people were just like on the edge of their seat, and then thunderous applause.
It's funny. You reminded me of a concert I did in Mexico about a month ago now, and we did this really beautiful impromptu concert with three. I want to call them conscious rappers because they're rapping about mental health, about empowerment,
Oh,
about
right, yeah.
consciousness, all these beautiful things. And it's nothing against the genre of rap. I actually really love rap and hip hop. Growing up in Toronto, really hard not to fall in love with it. And but usually the lyrics are pretty centered around materialistic, misogynistic, kind of not the greatest things usually that they're talking
Yeah.
about. Beats are great though. I love dancing to it, moving to it. It's fun. But conscious rap's really great because the messages are so empowering and beautiful. Anyway, we're doing the show, and these guys they also like in their day to day life do vipassana meditation retreats. They do breathwork workshops. They're all in that let's say that sphere. And so at the show, it was the first concert I've ever been to where in between almost every single song was a moment to be like, they're like, okay, everyone, we're going to just take a moment of silence and breathe in. Okay,
Perfect.
breathe out. All
Yeah,
right, so this next song is about this, but like they would sync everyone up with their breath work in between each song,
that's
and
brilliant.
then they would set attention in between each person's set. They
Yeah.
would do these little mini micro, like 30-second, 1 minute long meditations in between songs, sometimes during songs, sometimes. It was so interesting how they completely like reshaped what a concert could be, and even a genre like hip hop and rap, like what that could become with these additions of like bits of breath, bits of meditation. But it's not a workshop. I would never have called that experience like, oh, come to my meditation thing. It's like, no, no, no. This was a concert. People
I
were
think
moving. It was
we got to
fun.
do that more. Like
Yeah.
at the highest levels, I've been sort of wishing for this for a long time. But wouldn't it be great to work with? So who's from San Diego? So Jason Mraz is from San Diego. He got started in a
Oh,
coffee
love
shop.
him.
He has a big community spirit. Wouldn't it be great if someone at that level could introduce those sorts of practices into every concert that they do?
And I think it's happening. What was Coldplay's last album? Music of the Spheres, I think, was their last album. I mean, like already right there, they're talking about the ancient, sacred geometry and origins of life as through music, right? Music of the Spheres, the ancient Greek, which I think was based off of ancient Egyptian knowledge. I mean, they're pretty big and they're talking about that stuff. What was their latest single? Something about the universe. I forget, but like, I mean, I think they're tapping into that. They're very pop,
Yeah,
so I think it's
it's
happening,
happening.
It's totally happening.
It's
Yeah.
got to because I mean,
That's where we're moving as a
not to
society.
blow our own horn here, but like you said at the beginning, musicians, artists, we're a bit more on the right brain side of the scale than your average bear. And once you understand that and realize that it's part of your art, you can't not talk about it. And it's not like you get up there and Coldplay is giving a lecture on neuroscience, but offering it as an invitation builds it into that thing where you can remember the music later. And guess what? You remember the music and you remember the intention. And those two things combined are really powerful.
Yeah, extremely powerful. Intention is huge with the music. I mean, that's where you get the magic, and we're moving into that. I think as a
Yeah.
society, I think a standard concert is going to start to become not enough for people, and I think that's okay. I think at the end of the day, music is still music, and someone just playing a beautiful bit of guitar is always going to be a lovely experience or something like that. Don't get me wrong, but I think in a sense of like what a lot of artists are going to start to look towards to enhance the concert experience is
Yep.
to do these things that like it brings coherence and it brings connection, and it brings, like, when I've done these events, there is such a high vibe energy. Now you get this after any good concert, don't get me wrong, everyone's pretty buzzing after that, but when you do the extra modalities like some intentional breath work, really quick little ones too, but even
Yeah.
that, like, man, like we had all ages at our concert. We had kids starting from probably like 8 or 9 years old, two teenagers, and then middle age, all the way up to one woman was in their late 70s. And everyone was meditating when we got them into it. Everyone was breathing when we got them into it, and by the end, like, we were all literally just high off of life force energy. Like,
Yeah.
it was really magical. So imagining a stadium kind of experience with that type of show, I mean, who wouldn't want to not only be a part of it, but as the artist and like the curator, like, who wouldn't want to be the one leading that? That'd be wicked.
Right.
Right.
And, musicians kind of do that anyway without knowing all the ins and outs.
Mm-hmm.
And, the bigger the star. So I would love to be able to hear McCartney, like
Yeah,
before he's no longer performing. But I can imagine that at a concert like that, people come with an intention already. Like they've already
definitely.
prepared to receive this amazing music. It's not like you're going to hear a concert by somebody that you know is good, but you never heard before, or doesn't
Yeah.
have the 50-year history that McCartney has, or 60-year history he has now. Maybe it's longer.
Mm.
But you go with that preparation already in place. It's like preparing for a mushroom trip,
Yeah, pretty much. And I
right?
and I hear his concerts. He does a lot of storytelling, which I love.
Tons of stories. And then
Mhm.
afterwards, you're talking about it. So afterwards, you're integrating the whole experience into your life. I remember when I first heard this, and Paul played it that night. It was like this, and whatever. And the whole integrative experience that changes us permanently happens just naturally with that stuff.
That's beautiful.
And it can happen everywhere. Anytime there's music, right? It can happen, like you proved in Mexico.
Oh
It
yeah.
happened there, right?
Oh yeah. It literally can. And what I love is for the young generation to, and it's just for everyone, all ages, of course. But what I can see it doing with these kids, is almost making them already aware that music can be so much more than just listening to a cool tune, which is great. But it can be so much more, and to integrate it with these other modalities. Like, sure, we can dance to music, but you can breathe to music, you can meditate to
Oh
music, you
yeah.
can do some deep introspection to music, you can do all of it. You can do music healing, you can do sound healing, you can do, like, wow, what an amazing array of things. And again, as a student, as a young kid, when you got your exams or you got whatever you're working on at school, you can listen to binaural beats and you can enhance your, cognitive abilities through music.
Exactly.
I mean, holy cow, it's literally
It's
endless.
legal. It doesn't involve AI, and
Not yet. I had a friend send me a song written by AI, and I was a little scared. I was like, "Oh, it's actually pretty good."
I was playing around with Chat GPS because
Of
same
course.
reason. So I said,
Yeah.
I asked Chat GPS, write me a poem um, that includes a paradox and concrete imagery. And it took less than 2 seconds, and it was
I know.
back with a four stanza poem with a couplet at the end. It rhymed. It was everything was fine except for one verse, which I complained about, and which it immediately offered me some alternatives for.
Wow. Wow, wow,
And it
wow,
wasn't.
wow.
I mean, it wasn't okay if somebody in high school had been asked to write a poem, or maybe even college, they would have come up with something like this. It was pretty impressive. It's on Facebook. Anybody's following me, go see it there. It was a goofy thing, but I've decided that AI is good. And you want to know why?
Why?
Because AI means there's no more excuses for stupid people.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. We're already being outsmarted by them, so we got to up our game
So
now
we
as
got to up our
humans.
game, man. If you're having trouble determining which side of reality is real, we got Chat GPS right here. Conspiracy theory, run it through Chat GPS.
It'll let you know.
It'll let you know. Although that doesn't take anything away from the joy that we all experience with a guy like Representative Santos, who's fabricated his entire life and is just taking it to the bank right now.
I think it goes back to anything. It's like, how are we using it, right? And I think AI can be so beautiful, depending on how we use it, and so destructive, again, depending on how we use it.
Yeah.
Are you creating Data from Star Trek, whose only desire is to help humanity, or are you creating the Terminator?
Yeah.
So
So what are you going to
it's
do?
up to us.
And you know what? It's a really good point. And not to end on a dark note or anything, but one of the difficulties that we have is our technology is moving so fast that to use it takes almost no skill. But to co-opt it to do something dark or nefarious is the opportunity, that a lot of people see. Oh, this thing is so cool. I can use it for, some crazy purpose.
Yeah.
And we're in this place of fascination with that, where it's like the crazy purpose is more fun or something, or more sexy than using it for good. And that's a tough line civilization has probably walked before. I'm thinking now of the technology that built the pyramids, or the
Yep.
whatever it is that lets people scoop an ice cream sized, perfect sphere out of a piece of granite.
Yep.
What happened to that technology? Did people
Well, what
decide it
happened to
was
that?
too
What happened to that
powerful?
civilization?
And
They're
that
not here
civilization,
anymore.
right? They're
So
gone. So,
gotta be
modern
careful.
people take a note and do your homework, because if silence is what prepares you for what's coming next, we're always getting closer to what's coming next, right? So let's
And
go there with some good tools.
I agree. I agree. And I just think my last thought on that is, you're right. Technology is moving unbelievably quick, exponentially. And what needs to catch up, I would say even less than our own intelligence, because I think we're extremely intelligent. If anything, we just got to move some of the barriers that kind of dumb us down. But we're very, very smart, naturally, I would say.
Yeah,
But what we need is to expand and enhance our consciousness so that it is on par with the rate of expansion of our tech. So if we've enhanced our consciousness, and what I mean by that is just becoming more self-aware, more introspective, more aware of reality, yourself, how we operate as emotional, multidimensional beings, just coming more into those states of understanding is really what I mean by that. But with that in mind, you understand your place in the universe better. You understand that we're all connected. All of these isms and division tactics dissolve immediately. We all understand that we're connected, and there's a beautiful a bond of love between everything, everyone. With that level of consciousness, I think we'll be way better equipped to handle AI and all this technology I think that's the thing that needs to shift so we can be in harmony with it rather than, like you said, our more fascination with how can we screw people over, kill things or whatever. Like it's kind of the sort of kindergarten level of consciousness that we're at
Yeah.
still as a species that we just need to get a little bit higher. Grade 1, 2, 3, 4 would be nice. And we can do that. And that can happen exponentially, just like our technology. So I think that there's still a lot of hope for that.
Yeah, and I see that happening a lot too. I know you do as well.
Yeah,
The whole thing of expansion of consciousness during and after the pandemic is really going in a beautiful way.
it is.
And the death of the old ways of thinking is also going in a beautiful way. You know, we can see media clinging desperately to subscribers who only will purchase things that are bad.
Yep.
You know, people are walking away from that stuff
Oh,
and towards
that's
something
great.
else. You know, go people, right? Because that's us, that's our future. Just one aspect of that, which is really curious to me, is you know what the most sort of explosion of music is in Gen Z right now?
What?
There's a genre that's just taking off. Classical music.
Really?
Gen Z is all over classical music. And
And what age is that? Just for myself,
oh,
I
Gen
forget
Z. So
roughly.
before 2000, is that right? Or is it no, it's after 2000.
Okay.
Those are millennials, so this would
So
be, I don't know, born in 2010 and up, maybe
okay, okay.
something
All
like
right.
that.
So 13-year-olds,
Yeah,
12 year
yeah, teenagers
olds,
right now,
teenagers. Okay.
or they're like in the, so I'm not saying, I'm
Wicked.
not comparing any kind of a thing here. It's just that's interesting to me, you
I
know,
love that. That's
like
awesome.
they're not going into rap or I mean they're going to all music because you can get it all, but classical music is taking off
Oh,
and go classical music, right? Because there's richness in there that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's a genre, just like all the others,
just
but it's a genre that's been unexplored recently, and all of a sudden it's back. So,
yeah.
you know,
And there's lots of new, of course,
oh,
neoclassical
there's
is my favorite
incredible.
genre. I just love
Oh,
that. Yeah.
it's such a rich field.
Yeah.
So I have all this hope. I share your hope with this. I don't feel like I'm fighting a losing battle,
No.
even though we're probably a long way from musicians being paid like doctors and lawyers. At least
Yeah,
some
no.
of
We'll
them. I
see.
mean, but
We'll see what
it's
happens.
coming, right?
I think with the psilocybin side of things and how that's really expanding in the health world, and the research is getting more and more concrete, and the role that music plays in that is one of the, I think, great examples
Yeah,
of how
it's
we're
so
going to be
foundational.
regarded in other industries as really sought after experts, in these different areas. Where I mean, I'm literally being paid to do that in different clients for binaural beats, sound, different frequency pieces, you name it, like. I'm getting more and more of a niche going because that's what's needed. That's what's coming. That's what's in demand, and that's a great sign. We're really moving
Yeah,
in that direction.
yeah. I have hope for society, for
Me too.
civilization. I really
Me
do.
too. Yeah,
I really do.
100%. So that goes to you, listeners out there. We have hope in you. We have faith and hope
Yes.
in you guys listening. So, and everyone else, of course.
Whether or not you're listening, we have hope in you too.
We do
But we
exactly.
especially have hope in those of you who are listening
Yeah.
because that's our level of consciousness. We're speaking to you.
We're speaking to you guys. So
Yeah.
yeah, and thanks everybody for listening. And it's been such a pleasure doing this podcast. I feel like it's been my own like expansion of these topics, and my own
Right. Yeah.
consciousness has really elevated just talking to you, Bill, and our great connection, and of course then bringing it together with this almost like a trinity of the two of us, and then expanding it to our listening audience creates like a nice sort of three trinity, symbiosis where we can learn and grow together, and feed off of each other. And that's the way it should be with humans. We're great in community, and that's what we're building here. So we
Yeah.
love hearing from you guys. Of course, feel free to always send us a message. The links for that are, of course, in our description, show notes, and all that good stuff. And hit up Bill for any music applications in your life that you might need. He's amazing with that. And if you need to listen to any healing frequencies, you can check out my YouTube channel and on all that good stuff. Or as we say in a lot of these episodes, go on your own journey of discovery and see what you can find. And please let us know. Let us know what you find. We'd love to feature it in some of our episodes.
Definitely. Dittos to that. All of the above. Well
All the
said.
above.
And just add my thanks because you're right about this. Having the conversation is so key. And there's a lot of stuff that I've learned here and a lot of things that I've changed or tweaked about what I think about things. And that results from the relationship and the conversation that you and I have, Chris. And if you're out there listening to this, or if you're in a place where you're like, let's investigate this stuff, make some time to have like a regular conversation with someone that you trust, that you value, whose opinion matters to you, and just see where the conversation goes over time. Because
it's very therapeutic.
It's really therapeutic and mind expanding and awareness expanding, and who knows where that kind of stuff can lead, right?
I just heard a friend sent me. I have a friend that we message very regularly on WhatsApp, and they're like little journal entries. We really can just let a lot of things out.
Yeah,
very
like
close,
that,
close
right?
friends. It's like that. And he sent me today. Literally, it's funny we mentioned this. He sent me a excerpt from something. I don't know what it was. But he sent me an audio excerpt from, sounds like some expert talking about the effects of journaling, which you all know is very, very beneficial. And then they went on to mention, they're like, what's really helpful is if you just have someone that you can talk to on a regular basis, like a good friend, who you can have this, like, just getting all these things off your chest or exploring ideas with this other person, and they don't even have to respond. You can be sending like a voice note, for example, on WhatsApp, and they don't even necessarily need to respond. And they've done these studies where it shows like even just the emotional and cognitive levels are improving just by that expression to another human, knowing that someone else is going to inevitably maybe receive it and feedback. And even if they don't, there's still benefits to that. So I know what I've experienced with you, Bill, and doing this podcast has been extremely fun, but also very healing and therapeutic and expanding. Yes. And this all started from us connecting on Zoom, literally
crazy,
have yet to meet in person. I hope that changes one day, but
better, man. You're headed to Europe, and I'm not.
Well, we'll have to shift this around sometime. So
it's gonna happen.
It'd be great to do an episode together in the same location one day.
One day
we'll do it.
In the meantime, thanks for sharing the digital space.
Yes, you too.
Because it's all about relationship. Relationship first. Start with that, and everything else changes.
Thank you for listening in on our conversation, and for taking time to show your appreciation with a like, share, or subscribe. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness is a practice of spontaneity, and we welcome your comments, ideas, and questions. There are ways to connect with us in the show notes, so let us hear from you. Until next time, this is Bill Peratzman along with Chris Noble, wishing you great musical health. Samara Huchaya.